Why does Ozempic cost $1,500 in the US, yet in Canada it's only $147? Just imagine paying $1,500 for something, yet your neighbor gets the exact same thing for $147. This is a dirty little secret that doesn't involve the drug. It doesn't even involve big pharma. It involves an invisible middleman that you've never heard of that literally makes more than 10 of the top drug companies combined. What you're about to learn will explain why healthcare might seem to be a broken system, but it's not broken at all. It works perfectly. It's just not a system that's working for you. We're talking about a shadow system that has hijacked drug prices, and they are called the pharmacy benefit managers.
Think of it like this. So you go to a restaurant and you order a burger, okay? And let's say that burger costs $15. But before your order goes through, some guy steps in and says, hold on, if the restaurant wants to sell you that burger, they need to pay me $5, and if not, you can't have the burger.
Think of them as the toll bridge between you and drug prices.
But the PBM isn't just collecting the toll, they're also controlling which cars can pass, they own the bridge, they set the price of gas. They use their contracts to profit off of everyone crossing.
On the outside, the pharmacy benefit managers appear to be very helpful. They negotiate lower prices from the manufacturing companies. They also reduce out-of-pocket expenses. And of course, they also handle the complex logistics between employers and insurance companies.
So the PBM charges the employer a very high price, it pays the pharmacy a very low price, and it keeps the difference, and that's called spread pricing.
Now that's the apparency, but let's really now get into the reality of what really happens. The drug maker sets a crazy high list price. Let's say, for example, we're talking about insulin, right? The drug companies could potentially charge like $1,000, and this is for a month of insulin.
To have to pay out of pocket for a drug that costs $5 to make at the rate that most people have to pay is absurd.
Out of that $1,000, it could be anywhere between $300 and $600 for this PBM game.
They decide what drugs your plan covers. They decide how much you'll pay out of pocket. They decide which pharmacy you can use and when or if you get your medication. They'll often deny cheaper or better options if they don't generate a big enough rebate from that. They can actually force you to fill your meds at their own mail order pharmacy for more profit.
So you can see they have a lot of control over what's covered, what's not covered. The drug companies have to give them a kickback, a rebate, just to get that specific type of insulin on the list that the insurance companies will cover.
If you want your drug covered, give us a big rebate. So the drug maker has to raise the list price to afford that. The PBM gets to keep that rebate, and they never show it to the employer or the patient, and then they promote that particular drug. It's not necessarily because it's better, it's just because it paid better.
Drug companies get paid, the PBM gets a massive, massive kickback. The actual pharmacy doesn't get that much. Just as a side note, before we get more into this, recently the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, sued the largest 3 PBMs. The FTC accuses these 3 companies for artificially inflating insulin prices, investigating their rebate system. There were marked up specialty drugs for cancer, HIV, and other conditions by over $7.3 billion. One of the companies actually countersued the FTC over false and defamatory statements. What's even more wild is these pharmacy benefit managers also own the insurance companies. But now it gets even more interesting, because the PBMs own the pharmacies. Caremark owns CVS. Express Scripts owns a home delivery pharmacy. RX owns Optum Home Delivery Pharmacy, so they can ship directly to your house. Control of 80% of all the medications in the US comes from 3 of the biggest PBMs. In reality, the PBMs are not just the middleman. Since they've merged with the insurance companies and the pharmacies, now they're the actual gatekeepers of medicine. I mean, what's really bizarre is I had no idea of this until recently. I thought it was mainly just big pharma. I had no knowledge of why these medications are so darn expensive in the US, not other countries. The more we shine a light on this, the more transparency we get, the more we can do something about it. You can't do anything about something if you don't even know it exists.
It's a big problem even as it stands today, but as it's been receiving so much noise and so much fight through the political spectrum, it's getting a voice. And so the more a drug gets singled out, the more that they all start to kind of get concerned, and they start to slowly lower their price points and get lower and lower. But there have been instances where many cases where people have had to walk away from their drug because they couldn't afford it at the pharmacy.
If we just look at insulin, Canadians can get it for $18 compared to $1,000 in the US. Insane. And I'm talking about when you don't have insurance. And it's interesting, in Canada, the government negotiates the prices. There is no PBM there.
These PBMs don't exist in other countries. And the other countries force the best possible price in their particular country. They have mandates behind that. Here, we don't have any mandates behind best possible pricing. Outside of the recent favored nations executive order that Trump just passed, now the executive order calls for us to be able to match the lowest price of a competing nation. This is a big deal. This is exciting, and we're all kind of bated breath right now to see this play out. At the end of the day, our country sets the trend for quality research and development. Our country is the one that comes out with some of the brightest, biggest brand name drugs out there. And then other countries get the benefit of our research and development, and then we pay 3, 4, 5 times more for that drug that we brought to market.
Now that you know more about this medication scheme as a part of the healthcare problem, there's another scheme, or shall I say scam, that you must know about if you want long-term health. And I put that video up right here. Check it out.